Well, a new year is upon us, and that means it's time for my coveted end-of-the-year lists. Now, I'm planning to do 4 videos in this series, the first of which being the top 15 most anticipated games of 2013. Now, I just want to emphasize that this is only my opinion, and what I believe to be the games that are garnering the most attention going into the new year. I actually had to preen this list down to 15, so here are a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list, but are still garnering a lot of attention going into the new year. That being said, here are the top 15 most anticipated games of 2013. Coming in at number 15 is Remember Me. Developed by Don't Nod Entertainment and published by Capcom, Remember Me takes place in Neo Paris in the year 2084. The player controls Nilin, an amnesiac hunter who must track down her former employer, Memorize, in order to restore her own memory. The game introduces the mechanic of memory remixing, the process of entering and rearranging a target's memory in order to manipulate them. Players accomplish this by replaying a memory and modifying details to change the recollection of the outcome. Now, this new IP is a big surprise to come out of Capcom, and frankly, it just looks amazing. Coming in at number 14 is Injustice: Gods Among Us. Now, this game pits popular DC characters against one another, but the fact that it's being helmed by NetherRealm Studios, the same people that brought us Mortal Kombat 9 back in 2011, only sweetens the deal. Characters will fall into 2 categories: power characters and gadget characters, and to increase accessibility, the game utilizes a simplified 4-button layout of light, medium, and heavy attacks. Now, if past games from the studio are any indication, we can expect another fantastic one once Injustice is released to market. Coming in at number 13 is Arma 3. Set in the mid-2030s during Operation Magnitude, a military operation launched by NATO forces who are fighting in Europe against the eastern armies of an insurgent Iran, Arma 3 takes place on the Aegean islands of Lemnos and Stratus of Greece in the Mediterranean Sea. Lemnos will be the largest official terrain in the Arma series, with a ground area covering 270 square kilometers, while the smaller island of Stratus will cover an area of 19 square kilometers. Now, the Arma series has always had a strong following, but with the recently released zombie mod DayZ, also developed by Bohemia Interactive, the anticipation for this game is at a fever pitch. Coming in at number 12 is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Set 4 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, the story will focus on Raiden, who runs into Desperado Enterprises, a self-proclaimed private military company involved in terrorist activities. Unlike the waiting stealth of previous titles in which players largely remained hidden and avoided combat, players in Rising will quickly stalk their enemies and use acrobatic maneuvers to stay out of sight. While some might be put off by the new direction of this franchise, Metal Gear has a strong enough fanbase to warrant this game considerable attention. Coming in at number 11 is Beyond: Two Souls. Now, this game marks the 4th game by developer Quantic Dream after releasing Heavy Rain back in 2010. The game lets the player take the reins of Jodie Holmes through 15 years of her life on a journey to discover the paranormal entity known as Aiden. Now, if the footage we've seen is any indication, then we can expect quite the psychological thriller, largely in part to the fantastic voice acting and motion capture by its lead actress, Ellen Page. Coming in at number 10 is Star Wars 1313. Now, this game has the distinction as being one of the few games on this list that we know very little about, but because it's tied to the Star Wars brand, we can't help but get excited. The game will put the player in the role of a bounty hunter, navigating the planet Coruscant's subterranean level 1313 underworld as they try to uncover the truth behind a criminal conspiracy. It will take a more mature, gritty direction than previous Star Wars games, and will emphasize weapon and gadget combat exclusive to bounty hunters, rather than the Force and lightsaber-based combat. Coming in at number 9 is CRYSIS 3. Set in the year 2047, 24 years after the events of Crysis 2, Crysis 3 puts you in the role of the Prophet as he returns to New York City, only to find it encased in a giant nanodome created by the corrupt Cell Corporation. The game is the 3rd installment of the Crysis series and a direct sequel to the 2011 game Crysis 2, and while I've always found the lore of this game to be a little hard to follow, there's no denying that people will be shelling out some serious dough once this video game hits the market. Coming in at number 8 is Dead Space 3. The direct sequel to Dead Space 2 and the 3rd main entry in the Dead Space series, the game will primarily be set on the frozen planet of Tal Volantis and will follow Isaac Clarke and Sergeant John Carver as they attempt to destroy the necromorph Scourge once and for all. Now, when it was first displayed at last year's E3, the game was criticized for its heavy focus on cooperative gameplay. Nevertheless, this is a franchise with a lot of staying power and is a staple as far as horror games are concerned. Coming in at number 7 is God of War Ascension. Now, Ascension will be the 7th installment in the God of War series and will be a prequel to the entire franchise. Even more astonishing is that Ascension will be the first game in the series to feature multiplayer and will also include a revamped weapon and control system as well as new gameplay mechanics. Now, I think it's a fantastic new direction for the series and is a great way to bring back longtime fans of this beloved franchise. Coming in at number 6 is Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell BLACKLIST. Now, BLACKLIST is the 6th installment in the Splinter Cell franchise. Sam Fisher is formally appointed acting commander of the newly created 4th Echelon and is tasked with shutting down all 3rd Echelon activities, a group of 12 rogue terrorists who threaten the United States with a terror ultimatum known as the Blacklist. The game also introduces a new mechanic called Killing in Motion, which allows players to highlight targets and take them out in quick succession. Also, it has been confirmed that the Spy vs. Merc competitive mode from previous games will be making a return. Now, Ubisoft always manages to deliver time and time again, and from what we've seen, I think they have another winner on their hands. Now, coming in at number 5 is Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, there's been a lot of hype surrounding the 15th entry in the Grand Theft Auto series. The game follows 3 characters with interconnected stories and takes place in the fictional city of Los Santos. According to developers, nearly every gameplay mechanic in GTA 5 has evolved, and takes place in a world bigger than Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto 4, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas combined. Will it make for a better game? It's too early to tell, but suffice it to say that fans are eagerly awaiting the next iteration of the series. Coming in at number 4 is Tomb Raider. Now, this game is not only a reboot of the franchise, but it's also the origin story of its lead character, Lara Croft, and her evolution from a frightened young woman to a hardened survivor. In comparison to previous entries in the series, Tomb Raider will have a much stronger emphasis on hunting and survival rather than straight up running and gunning. It's darker, it's grittier, and it could just be what Crystal Dynamics needs to bring back fans to this beloved franchise. Coming in at number 3 is The Last of Us. Now, this one's a new IP by developers Naughty Dog, coming off the heels of their widely successful Uncharted series. And seeing as I'm a huge fan of apocalyptic science fiction, only makes this game that much better. The game pits survivors Joel and Ellie against those known as the Infected, as well as other hostile survivors of the apocalypse. Now, in addition to the tight controls that Naughty Dog is known for, players will also get to experience intuitive AI, dynamic stealth, and wide linear, giving players more options on how to approach any given situation rather than restricting them to a linear path. It was a big shock when the trailer for this game was first revealed almost 2 years ago, and I still can't wait to play it. Coming in at number 2 is Watch Dogs, and probably the biggest surprise to come out of this year's E3 was Ubisoft Montreal's upcoming blockbuster, Watch Dogs. The big showstopper was the lead character's ability to hack into electronic devices, either to obtain information or to destroy them completely. Now, with the graphics looking so spectacular, people speculated that Watch Dogs was going to be released for the next generation of consoles. Fortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case, and players couldn't be happier. Add some cooperative multiplayer into the mix, and you've got the formula for one of the hottest techno-thrillers of next year. And coming in at number 1 is BIOSHOCK Infinite, which is actually kind of ironic since it topped my last year's list for most anticipated game, before it was delayed from October 2012 to February 2013. The game shifts us from the underwater city of Rapture to the floating city of Columbia, and tasks Booker DeWitt with rescuing Elizabeth as the city slowly descends into anarchy. Since the first revealed trailer of this game was released all the way back in August of 2010, fans have been waiting and waiting to play this alternate history steampunk narrative. And if it manages to capture even a fraction of the fun and excitement of the original BioShock, then I have no doubt in my mind that this game is going to be a resounding success. Now, I want to hear what you have to say. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree with them? Do you have entries that weren't on this list that you think are deserving of being the most anticipated games of 2013? Feel free to post a comment in the comment section below. That being said, I'm the Millennium Gamer, signing off.